We've been rolling for the past minute and a half. God, what have we said?
You're whispering sweet nothings.
I was whispering sweet nothings into the microphone. I believe I was asking if I could call it Michael, since yours is Mike. I was like, can I call mine Michael? I never got an answer on that, so I'm just going to go ahead and call it Michael. Well, in that case, I think we're ready to start. Welcome to the Video Reformation. I am Ben Oliver.
I'm Justin Plant.
We are the co-founders of Storyboard Media, and we are your hosts here on this little journey we're all taking together here. Before we get into today's topic, which is, of course, video library audits, which just sounds so much fun.
Sounds compelling.
I understand we have a new sponsor this week.
We do have a new sponsor.
Why can't we hold on to a sponsor?
We only sell one episode at a time. There's a list, and so...
But we get so many incoming inquiries,
Right.
We can only commit an episode per.
Usually they sell out, and then they have to replenish their entire supply, so it's not good to do it back-to-back.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I like that. Well, I'm interested to hear who our sponsor is this week.
Yep. It is Biggie's Belt and Suspenders. 2 techniques for the 2 tentative.
Okay.
It's belt and suspenders in one.
What I like about it is the 2 levels of alliteration. I think that's what drew me. Again, we vet all of our sponsors before we commit to them.
Right.
So, I mean, I remember when we went to the factory and I first put on a belt. I was like, well, this is nice, but I don't know. I'm feeling a little tentative about whether this is going to hold my draws up.
Yeah.
And then the tour guide, who was fantastic, by the way, she says, well, hold on, let me give you these.
As if you didn't know it was coming.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm usually 3 sheets to the wind by the time we get to these visits anyway. So, yeah.
Maybe that's why we can't hold on to a sponsor.
That would explain a lot. All right, tell me who our sponsor is again.
Biggie's Belt and Suspenders. 2 techniques for the 2 tentative.
Yeah, they should consider renaming their company to Biggie's Belt and Braces.
Ooh.
But we'll just send them an invoice for that,
For that
fantastic creative right there. Okay, well, welcome to our new sponsor. We're glad to have you. I'm sure you won't be here in 2 weeks. Okay, so video library audits. So sexy.
Yeah, but it doesn't have a nice ring to it, but there's a lot of value in it.
Well, and I think even to the point that like our little service product package thing is called a video activation plan.
Yeah.
Like we knew that we couldn't stick with
Couldn't
audit.
sexify audit.
Right. Although I'm
Plus,
sure
it's more than just. It's more than just. Well, why don't we go ahead and explain? I guess.
Okay,
What
yeah.
it is, because it is more than just an assessment.
Right.
Right. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's really on the top level. A video library audit is an opportunity to get more out of the content you've already got, especially in a situation where you may want to do that before you go and create anything new. So it's really just taking a look at what you've got, what's publicly, I think primarily publicly available, how it's organized, is it optimized, is it relevant, and making sure that it's as efficient and effective as it can be. That's really, and it of course requires an audit of your existing video assets, but then the value is in what you then do once you've kind of looked at everything you've got.
Yep.
I think the one of the stats that jumps out at me too, and Vidyard just released their new video benchmarks report for 2019, and I went looking for that for this statistic in that because it's been in their previous years, but I couldn't find it in this year's for some reason. But in 2018's video benchmarking report, Vidyard said that businesses have published 377 videos on average and are publishing 33 new videos every month. Their video libraries will double within 12 months.
They publish 377 every year.
I think it's... So I think this is largely... I don't know the methodology. I think this is largely based on Vidyard clients.
Yeah.
Which being more enterprise clients, that means it probably skews a little bit on the higher end in terms of any business that may be using video. I think that just on average, their clients' video libraries have 377 videos in them.
Okay. Their entire
So
Gotcha.
if they're creating 33 every month, then I imagine that in 12 months it would be another 377 bigger.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a statistician, but that's kind of the main point of that though is is that it's real easy, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time for your, and I think library is even maybe too loose a term sometimes, or maybe library is implying too much organization. But like the video assets that you have, it's real easy for them to get out of control and disorganized. And I mean, who actually spends the time to go back and look at what they've got to make sure that it's all working for them? People should. And hopefully after listening to this episode, they will more, because we're going to talk a little bit about why you should do it, but also talk a bit about how to conduct a video audit. So I think first it's really worth talking about why you might want to do this. What are the benefits of a video audit? And the first point for me is the ability to boost successful content, right? Like part of it is looking at your analytics. So you may know offhand, oh, this video or this type of videos do really well. But as you go through this audit process, you're going to find the ones that have been really effective. And depending on the kinds of analytics you're tracking, you can define that by either number of views or how much revenue it's led to, if you're tracking, deals influenced by video, those kinds of things. What's worked, what's working, and how can you amplify that content? Are there opportunities, since your audience, and this is something that we talk about often, it's certainly something that's mentioned in the manifesto, when we talk about measuring, we're talking about measuring and learning from everything we can learn from our analytics. And so these are the opportunities to look at what content is being well consumed and is having an influence over purchasing decisions or even customer journey decisions. And if they're working, why would we not want to promote them?
Yeah, I've been silent over here. No, you're on a roll, so I was just kind of nodding my head.
What are your thoughts about the benefits of boosting successful content?
The reason I really like video audits is because, as you know, I'm quite a...
Ooh, can't leave me that kind of blank. As you know, I'm quite a...
I want to say like neat freak. Like I like things clean and kind of in shape and in order. And so for me, the reason I like it is because it's a chance to organize your content.
Yeah.
And because everybody, anybody who's involved in the content and the creative part of your business could just upload anything to YouTube as long as they've got the information, the credentials to log in.
Sure.
Well,
which are pretty easy to come by.
Yeah, and if you don't have a set of rules or whatever as to how this needs to be done, they can just, and I mean, there's just going to be a whole list of videos, and people won't know how to navigate that.
Right.
You'll see some YouTube channels that are very well organized, and it's nice because you can skip past all the webinars and you can skip past the testimonials and get to the product videos because that's what you're there for. So I like to organize your content. If it's hard to find, if it's hard to find your own video on YouTube,
right,
your clients aren't going to find it.
Well, and it's so important too, because I don't want to make too many assumptions here, but if you're a believer in the manifesto, you're also being strategic about the content that you're producing, and so you're giving some thought as to what your buyer's journey is, what your prospect's journey is, and so you're probably helping guide them through that journey. If you're making it hard to give them the tools to take the next step on that journey, they're probably not going to spend a whole lot of time looking for them. So if they're not readily accessible, easily organized, and easy to find and consume, they're probably just going to go somewhere else. You're missing an opportunity. You may not lose a client because of that, but you may certainly lose a prospect, because your job as a marketer in a lot of scenarios, especially B2B scenarios, is to help educate and inform your prospects so that they can make the right decisions. And if you're making those things and not making it easy for them to find, then you're not really doing your job. I think it's also important to optimize your content, right? I mean, especially for anybody, and it's not even just for people who are using YouTube to post their videos, but treat your videos like they are SEO tools, basically, right? There are so many videos on YouTube or Vimeo or embedded on people's sites where you can see that like the title of the video is explainer underscore video underscore version 2C underscore final underscore actually final underscore final not doing any more revisions dot mp4.
Yeah.
And I imagine that not a whole lot of people are searching YouTube or Google for explainer underscore video underscore version 2C underscore whatever all that other stuff is, right? So if you're not optimizing your videos for the types of things that people are searching for, and if you've done any SEO research, you know what keywords you should be, putting into your titles and descriptions and tags. People can't find you if you're doing that. So there's a tremendous opportunity just to go back and see what you've got describing your content to help people find it.
Well, I mean, as every year goes by and you haven't looked at any of this stuff, that can be, like, if a particular video hasn't had a lot of success based on views or whatever, maybe there's a reason for that. And
I think that's a great point.
It's are people able to find it? It's not that the video's bad. Are they able to find it? Has it been organized in such a way? That's
an interesting point. I mean, it kind of goes to, the way that I was kind of going through the notes for this episode was, to be perfectly honest, kind of thinking about a video audit as a thing you do once. Because so often when we come across it, it's never been done, and so it's being done for the first time. But it really is a practice that you should continue and do at least once a year, right? And it'd be interesting to track. We've already talked about finding the videos that are doing well for you, but it'd be interesting to track how performance improves maybe after your first video library audit because you have optimized it. And then when you go back the second time, maybe you see all kinds of maybe it's an old video, but you just named it right, and now all of a sudden it's getting the views that some of your top videos are getting. That's interesting.
Or maybe it was named right a year ago, but consumer behavior has changed, and now they're looking for something that's slightly different, but this will still help them. So just understanding the times, the zeitgeist of what you're...
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of we've got one more reason to talk about why, but that's a big part of starting how to do your video audit, because businesses, products, goals, keywords, all that stuff changes over time. So it may be that something is still perfectly relevant. It just needs to have a different title or description or keywords. Maybe even a thumbnail, exactly, right? To capture the way that people decide. I mean, it's not quite like VHS versus Betamax, but like certain kind of disruptive technologies are usually called certain things for a while, and then there's kind of a winner, right? Like Uber became a verb, essentially, right? And so if you're kind of on the cutting edge and sharing thought leadership content, anything like that, and you're using the Betamax version of whatever that topic is, but then you go back during your audit and now everybody's referring to it as VHS, just change the terminology from Betamax to VHS or whatever the applicable scenario is.
One thing we barely touched on, but I think is huge, is that thumbnail opportunity. Like from an organizational standpoint, to be able to make it easy to see what this video is about instead of just taking the automatic one that YouTube would give you, automatic thumbnail.
That's almost just like what not to do.
Yeah.
Like I believe we have video hosting platforms as an upcoming episode that we're going to be producing, and I imagine as a part of that we're going to be talking about best practices within each of those channels, and with each of those channels you've got to be optimizing your thumbnail. I mean, you have to take advantage of upload your custom thumbnail. The only wrong answer is to like pick from the options they give you, basically. And so, keep an ear out for that episode. I'm sure that may be next. But yeah, thumbnails are huge, and it's not just to stand out on a platform like YouTube, but even if you've got your own video channel or video library, video hub on your site, those can be a lot of thumbnails, and the easier it is, again, to identify which are the ones that relate to me, the thumbnail is the easiest way to present that information. I think the fourth big benefit now of doing a video library audit is to get rid of anything that's not helping you, anything that's old or irrelevant, If it can't be updated with a simple metadata change, like a title, a description, whatever, like we were just talking about, then it's probably doing you more harm than good. If you've got your event recap, if you've got any event recap videos, just get rid of them. We've talked about that before. If you've got an event recap video for BusinessCon 2016 on your YouTube channel or in your embedded video library, my guess is nobody really gives a shit about BusinessCon 2016 event recap video, given that it's, what year is it, 2019?
Mm-hmm.
So, I get that people sometimes have an emotional or financial attachment to video content that's been made, and so they feel like they want to get as much out of it. I mean, we hear a lot about evergreen content, and if you're following the manifesto, you're creating specific videos for specific audiences for specific purposes, right? Then you're probably not creating a whole lot of evergreen content. Mm-hmm. So if it's about something that happened a couple years ago, or God forbid it's about version 1.3 of your app and you're on version 3.7 now, if somebody stumbles upon, I mean, at some point you're actually probably fighting against yourself from an SEO standpoint.
Yeah.
So if somebody searches for, the name of your app and they find, because it's been there longer, the demo video for version 1.3, they're missing out on all the functionality that now version 3.7 has, because that one's just going to show up first. And they're going to say, oh, well, this is a demo video. They don't know. Prospects don't know your product like you do.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to know. So just get rid of that stuff. It's hard to say goodbye, but sometimes you just have to cut it loose. Okay. Any other reasons you think that it's worth, any other benefits to conducting a video library audit?
I'm sure there are benefits we haven't thought about or experienced yet, but
sounds like an opportunity to hear from our listeners what they think some of the, especially ones who've done it before.
Yeah.
What have they found that some of those benefits are?
I'd love to get a show of hands of who has ever heard of a video audit before.
A third of a person just raised their hand.
No, but let's move on to how to do it, because that's going to be very helpful.
Yep. So the first, and this is going to sound familiar, the first step is to basically assess your current situation, right? So if we go back to basic strategy, which I believe we covered in episode 1, we want to assess our goals, our audience's journey, distribution channels we're using, what things are relevant now. Because depending on how strategic an approach we took, like we mentioned, businesses, goals, products, times change, right? So what is it that we're trying to do with our video content right now? What purposes? What specific audiences? And that's kind of the first step, is get a sense of what do we need. We're about to dive into the 377 videos we have in our library. So what do we want to judge them against? If we're trying to find opportunities to, some of it also is kind of ranking your content, right? And so the relevance of your content to your existing goals is one way to rank that content, to help make decisions on which content to promote, which content to cut, those kinds of things. So you really got to get a sense of where are we right now. And if this is something that you haven't done before, it's a great way to just have those basic parameters documented for creating any new content also. But it certainly applies to assessing your existing content. For example, your goals as a marketing department may now be that you need to create 450 MQLs this year, right? And so you've broken that down into your annual, quarterly, monthly, weekly goals, that kind of thing, right? Those may be totally different, especially in a growth stage company. That may be totally different than 2 years ago when you had MQL goals of 100 MQLs for the year that you were supposed to generate. And so, those kinds of things, right? Where are we now? You may evolve your prospect personas, right? You may have had 3 primary personas, but due to changes in what you've learned about your prospects or changes in your product or service that may have happened over time, where are we right now? That's what's important. It's It's resisting the urge to say, well, this made sense then because blank. That doesn't matter right now. It may have been perfectly valid then, and it may have made sense then, but if it doesn't now, then is it really helping you? That's what we're really trying to do first. Yeah. The next thing is the thing that you probably want to farm out to an intern, because this next step is basically create a huge-ass spreadsheet. And you've got to think of all of the sources where you have video, YouTube, internal video channels, videos embedded on your site, videos you shared on social. You've got to go back through every video you've basically ever made and ever kind of put out there and literally start to list out the details on each one of those videos. So we're talking, what's the title? What's in the description? What are the tags that are in it? What does the thumbnail look like? Which channels is it currently shared on?
Are there built-in calls to action?
Yes. And also, what are the baseline analytics? From the analytics, what do we know of this thing? Is it this many views and this kind of engagement? I mean, one of the things you can learn from an audit is one of your high-performing videos only engages audiences for 50% of the time. Well, to me, that's probably an opportunity to do a re-edit of the original video and make it shorter, right? Maybe cut out the second half or break it up into 2 separate videos. It's still wildly viewed and there's value in the first half of the content, but maybe it just runs on too long. So you've got to put all of that data and metadata in an ugly spreadsheet so that you can go through and basically assess everything, because that's the next step, is really then evaluating all of those videos. Yeah, I think watching. Yes, you've got to watch through. You've got to watch through. I would say all the stuff.
That's why the interns. I don't know.
Yes.
But I don't know if you can actually hand the steering wheel over.
No, but if part of the intern's job is to also put the link to where that video exists in all of its places, then as that intern's manager, you then get to go click on those links and watch all those videos.
Yeah,
or
I think that's the reason people would hire someone like us as well to go through that, because that is a lot of time.
Well, I mean, look, it's an audit for a reason. Right? I mean, an audit is basically looking in the ugliest mirror you can find. Yeah. And part of that is watching old stuff that you've made.
Yeah, nobody glorifies the CPA or the IRS agent who has to do an audit. There's nothing fantastic about that.
But that is a really good argument as to why you should hire someone like us to do this for you, is because you hire a CPA or a tax attorney to help you through an audit.
But when we worked through this, we had person sitting right here, right, watching so that we were able to rapid fire answer questions or whatever. Yeah. But I can't go through all the videos we've ever made.
No, and I wouldn't. Although that brings up a good example. I mean, the hero video on our website is something that we made at a certain time when we were making certain
business decisions,
pivots and new business decisions. Yeah. And I don't want to go too much in depth, but one of the things that we included was kind of from a qualifying standpoint. It came from a good place. Yeah. From a qualifying standpoint, stating what our clients are, what we kind of expect our clients to spend with us over the course of a year, right? And it's designed to be there for to disqualify the bad opportunities, the shops that are too small for us to be able to help for budget reasons,
or just our needs, really.
Yeah,
part of this. Yeah,
and we found over time that one part of that video was scaring off a lot of people, even if they were perfectly qualified. For some reason, they heard that number and they're like, "Oh, that's not." I mean, they may be willing to spend 2 or 3x that, but we weren't hearing from them because they heard that first number.
Or it was misinterpreted.
Sure,
or something.
Sure, but we won't answer the phone for less than X or whatever, right? And so all we did was edit out that section of that video and replace it, and now that's our hero video for now. and it seems to have worked. So it's worth watching stuff through to see, maybe it's not that an entire video is irrelevant, but maybe there's just a part of a video that's irrelevant.
Right, and that's why it is like you have to have someone who's strategically involved with that, with the initiative, right? Because just hiring an intern just to do this and they have no idea what your company or your goals, what it's about, you can't just let that happen, because they might just be sitting there to make sure that the video is good.
Right.
Right. And why is their perspective any good?
Right. Well, and I think it's pretty clear now that the intern is there only to create that horrible spreadsheet. It's their job to go through and create 377 different rows of information that have, a dozen different columns. And you can't trust an intern with anything else. So have the intern create the spreadsheet, have that be their summer project, whatever. But you can't rely on them to make any decisions.
Yeah.
And that just, saying it out loud just sounds so obvious. So hire the intern to make the spreadsheet, and that's it. Unless you got someone on staff who really loves making spreadsheets. So it's worth somebody, whether you're watching the videos, whether you're going through all of that metadata, you've got to evaluate each of those data fields essentially against your current strategy. That's why it does need someone who knows what's going on. What's our current situation? Again, it's not about these were our goals when we made this, and that's why it was made. You're not trying to justify why content was made.
Whatever,
you're trying to figure out.
Like Rafiki said, right?
Yes.
That's the monkey's name, right?
It's a monkey's name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jungle Book? I know. I know. What? So yes, I do think that watching videos is part of it. I think that going through each of those fields is part of it. And then you've almost got to create a duplicate spreadsheet and say, what are we going to change this to? Mm-hmm. Right? How do we, what tags, how do we change the title? What description do we change based on what we're doing now? Because again, it's about getting the most out of your existing content, potentially before creating any new content. So you might as well do the hard work to make those changes. And then, of course, you've got to go into all those platforms and make those changes. But at least you're like Command-C, Command-V from this, second version of this spreadsheet now. So then I imagine you can start to eliminate certain content, right? There's a way to kind of see which stuff rises to the top, which stuff kind of sits in the middle, and then which stuff is irrelevant or outdated. That's the stuff that then you get to go ahead and strike through in that spreadsheet, so that when you're going back and making your changes, the first thing you do is find those videos and delete them.
So do you delete them, or do you just private them?
I would, if you've got a valid archiving system and you've got hard drives where you're keeping all this stuff, I would just delete them.
Mm-hmm. So there's no mistakes.
Some platform, like Wistia actually charges, they give you 100 free videos, and then it's 25 cents a video over that, something like that. Well, if you're still, it's only 25 cents a video, but if you're eliminating 100 videos, that's $25 a month that you could potentially save by actually deleting those things, as long as you've got an archive. Never fully get rid of anything. That's just basic data management. So, and then if it becomes relevant, or if there's a way to and that's the middle of the list, right? What are things we need to tweak? But if it's going to be deleted, I would say just delete it. Just push that button, put in your password, for confirmation if the system requires that, and say, yes, I want to delete this. That's fine. Yep. And you've recorded all of the basic analytics on it anyway, so it's like you're not losing the record of how many views or click-throughs and all that kind of stuff. So you've got that. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm just thinking there's, and again, nobody really knows what Google is doing behind their walls, but they've got YouTube, and they lend a lot of credibility to videos that have had a million views, right?
Sure.
Or hell, just even 500 views versus one that's had 6. And if you're niche enough in your industry, chances are that someone's searching for something, and I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking through some of that. I guess you just kind of make the call when you're there.
Yeah, I don't want to say go so far as to take the Marie Kondo approach. It's not about which videos bring you joy, but I would argue, and I'm open to other arguments, but I would argue that you just get rid of the stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's where my head's at, because I'm, again, I like it clean.
Yeah, but if somebody knows more about SEO than we do and wants to say, actually, if you leave this stuff up, your channel will come up more prominently, then
Give a
fine.
second for David to pipe in.
Yes. No? Okay. So, apparently there is no SEO value to keeping old videos up on here.
Or he left.
Yes, he may have left. I don't think he's listening anyway. He's probably got those AirPods in.
Okay.
When he listens to this episode to write the description before we post it, that'll be the first time he's hearing this part.
And he'll speak up.
Yes. This is where we put in, David. This is where you let us know. Good. It's pretty clear he heard none of that. Okay.
You're fine.
So we've listed out all of our videos. We've evaluated them against our current situation, our current criteria. Now it's time to basically pull off that Band-Aid, right? Get rid of the stuff that is old, irrelevant, not helping you. Because again, my thinking here is you're just as, in fact, going to this point, if you've got the version 1.3 video up, it's been up longer, it's got more views, it's likely that it will show up in a search more than your more than your most recent version.
So, it depends on what platform you're on, but yes.
Yeah, but yes, I mean,
YouTube
but from
being a search.
But even embedding video on your site helps in general search SEO too. So I think that's just another argument just to get rid of this stuff. So now we're stuck with what's left. Mm-hmm. And now really is where you go through and you optimize, right? What should the thumbnail be? Is it compelling? This is another reason to watch the stuff. You've got to actually look. I mean, I suppose you could take a screen grab in that spreadsheet and put that in one of the fields, what all the thumbnails look like. That's probably not a terrible idea. But, how can we make do a YouTube thumbnail best practices search and read a couple articles about, I mean, you probably want to have someone's face in there and you want the text to be large enough for somebody to say, oh yeah, that's relevant to me.
Sure, for certain types of videos.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then once you've gone through and kind of optimized everything from an SEO standpoint, all of that metadata, then you can start to make decisions about how you might boost some of your best content and reuse some of your best content, whether you're promoting it specifically through paid promotion campaigns, whether you're reposting it. I mean, that's the, everybody knows produce once, publish everywhere, right? Well, this is an opportunity to just go ahead and get this maybe older but better performing content out there again. If it's worked, why not give it a boost and put it at the top of your social feeds for a while and remind everybody that it's there? Or realize that not everybody's paying attention to you all the time, and so there's probably a whole lot of new sets of eyes that are there that don't know about this particular piece of content, and so you get to share it again and they get to see it for the first time. And then it's just as successful with that new audience as it was with prior audience. I think branding is another part of going through this too.
Of course, yeah.
And this gets into, I think this probably gets into more of a subheading of re-editing. I think this is a subset of your list, because thumbnails are one way to just make everything work with your brand if you've had any kind of branding changes. But if your lower thirds, if your logo stings are outdated, if you've got the project files, it's real easy to go back in and just swap that kind of stuff out. And it's worth it to help everything stay consistent and make it look cohesive and well thought out. And again, it's just a great way to kind of refresh that older content. Oh, we've got to put our new logo sting on this, or we've got to change, our font because our typefaces are different now. Our lower thirds need to look different now. That's fine. Sure, that's going to take a little bit more time, but that's what we're trying to do here. Get the most out of what you've already got. You don't have to go back to square one. Just make some updates to the elements that are already a part of the videos.
Which is one of the, especially if this is something that's on your site, that's one of the benefits to not embedding YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Because you can replace a video.
Yeah.
All of the links that are in all of your email campaigns and all that stuff, that all stays the same. It's just the new video.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's an interesting, I have thought for years that eventually YouTube would get to that where you'd be able to replace a video, and they're just if they were going to, I think they would have done it by now.
I think it's just that's the choice they've made, and that's the road they're going down. And but YouTube's taken on a whole different culture too. It's not necessarily a business friendly,
unless you're paying for ads.
Sure. Of course that.
Yeah.
But that's a whole. Yeah. This is. Yeah. Outside of hosting.
Yes.
It is a ad network.
Yeah. That's what they care about. That's why they can let the free public facing platform. They can have more restrictions on that because somebody's going to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they're going to go somewhere else. They're just going to go somewhere in addition, right? And then I think the last big point on this too is to identify the opportunities for the next content that should be made too.
Okay.
If you go back to kind of step one in this, and you're assessing your audience personas and the journeys they're taking currently. If you've got that mapped out and you're producing content that helps guide your audience through that journey, which hopefully you are, then this is your chance to go back through that journey and see if there are any gaps in the content you've got that you need to plug. Are there any questions that you know that your personas are asking that you aren't answering currently? Whether that's because you know that there's a slightly different journey and they're asking different questions than when you made this content 2 or 3 years ago, or you just never got around to it. It's a great way to come up with here's what we should make next.
Right.
There's a way to develop your own roadmap for the next phase of your video content by just looking at what's missing
and what's worked.
And what's worked, and a lot of, and I think there's 2 angles of what's worked too. It's the video that has worked, especially if you're using one of the more advanced platforms. This is an opportunity to not only watch the video, but also look at the engagement that you're getting from your viewers. Are there sections of these videos that are being rewatched? Does that indicate to you that maybe that's a key point that a lot of people, I mean, it could mean that it's poorly explained, and so they have to watch it a couple times. But if you're watching along with reading those heat maps, you'll be able to tell if it's just shittily explained and people have to watch it 3 times to understand it, or if they just see that there's a lot of value in that content. Well, great. There's a whole opportunity for you to create more content based on that little piece. Mm-hmm. I think it's also worth looking at your other content in general, your non-video content. It's a great way for a company to start creating video content, or just to kind of double down on video content, is what white papers are working, what guides, what ebooks are working. Create video versions of those, or create video promos of those to drive people to them. If you know that a certain white paper is consumed, it has an 80% close rate after it's been consumed by someone, why not turn that exact content into a video? Because that's probably a video that almost no matter what you spend on it, you're going to get a return on it pretty quickly. So, it gives you that opportunity to say what's been successful with our video content, with other content, where are the gaps that are there, and then you've kind of got your mini roadmap for what you should do next. Yep. And so there's a lot of value in that. I mean, not only do you get an organized library that's now working better for your business today, but you kind of know what your next steps are too.
So how long do you think this should take? Because
3 hours.
There's the argument to I could be spending my time on better things.
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously it's a function of how large your video library is.
Yeah.
And to that point, I think the more often you do it, the less time it takes each time you do it. So, first time's probably going to be the hardest. If you've got 25 videos, it's going to, I don't know, maybe take a week to get through with all the other things that you've got going on, in your day-to-day. If you've got 377 videos, my guess is it's going to take substantially longer.
Yeah.
It may take a business quarter, and you can do it piece by piece if you need to.
Sure.
The point is to get to a point where you say, as of June 25th, or whatever the release date of this episode is supposed to be, our video library is optimized for our business goals, basically, then you've won. So, I think it does take a level of detail and a level of There's two parts of it. There's a level of detail in terms of compiling all of the information, and then there's a level of insight that you need to bring when you're assessing what to promote, what to change, what to get rid of, those kinds of things. So it's not just a simple, like, I could draw up a 12-step manual and hand this off to somebody. You've got to involve multiple people, but I imagine any organization with a substantial video library would see the benefit in making sure that everything is relevant and optimized. And so it's worth whatever time you've got available to put into it, I think. You could also always outsource it.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It is like doing the dishes. If you let them pile up for a long time, it's just going to take a lot longer to get through. But then if you do it daily, you just have a clean kitchen.
Yeah, my pile of empty Amazon boxes at home is just overwhelming, and so I do nothing about it. I could.
Do you play like race car or anything?
Race car? Tell me more about race car.
I don't know. Get in there and pretend.
I could make a fort with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For that egg slicer, I bet that's a tiny box though.
Well, it was an egg slicer and a bathroom scale.
Okay.
So it was a big enough box. It was like a 14 by 14 box for the scale, and then the egg slicer was just put in there.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about that before we were recording, so nobody has any idea what the egg slicer is we're talking about, and I'm fine with that. I think anything else about how to do it?
No.
Justin's thinking.
No.
Then I think the last point is, this is kind of too clever by one half, or a little cheeky, but I think the next question people would ask is, when's the best time to do an audit? And it's basically like now.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever you can.
I mean, if you need a deadline, like a New Year's Day to stop smoking kind of thing, then fine.
Sure.
Pick it and do it.
Sure.
Then you can plan time around it, right?
Yeah. Right. At the end of our fiscal year. Yeah. We want to have this done by the end of our fiscal year.
Sure.
Or, our downtime is during the summer, so we can put more resources. I mean, whatever you need to do it. But again, the first time is going to be the hardest, and it's just going to get easier every time you do it that way. I think this is something you definitely want to do annually. If you're creating 33 videos a month, like the Vidyard Benchmark Report, then it's something I would probably do no more than quarterly, or no less than quarterly. So, basically just rip the Band-Aid off and do it. All right. Well, I think that's kind of the basics of a video library audit. Again, if you prefer to look at it as like a video activation plan, that's why we call our little service a video activation plan.
That's the point of it all, is to clean it up and use it better.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked a little bit about, why you want to do that, which is, again, just kind of the main points there: boosting successful content, optimizing and organizing your content, and getting rid of that old, irrelevant content. How to do it, very top level. We definitely shouldn't do these at the beginnings of episodes, because then nobody would listen through these top level recaps. These really need to be at the end of an episode.
No, all the golden insights are, well, why would you recap at the beginning?
There's that principle of tell them what you're going to say, tell it to them, and then tell them what you just said. Mm-hmm. We're just skipping the first part. So, we're going to start with assessing our current situation. What are our goals today? Who's our audience? What are our personas? What are those journeys? What are the distribution channels we're using? What's successful in those channels? Then you've got to go through the process of actually listing out and kind of databasing all of your videos, wherever they may live: titles, keywords, tags, thumbnails, places they're embedded. Then you've got to evaluate your videos against those current goals and audiences. Got to get rid of what's irrelevant, optimize and organize what's left, and then you've got the opportunity to build your roadmap for how to fill those gaps and what other content you might be able to turn into video content. And again, big picture, first time is going to be the hardest, but do it on a regular basis. It's just going to get easier. I think it's time to thank our sponsor. Tell us who our sponsor is again.
Sure. It is Biggie's Belt and Suspenders. 2 techniques for the 2 tentative.
Thank you so much for your sponsorship. Really love the product.
You really should go to the factory too. It's quite an amazing, the test facility they have.
It's, it reminds me of like the Q division in the James Bond movies.
Okay.
I mean, they're like creating these like, pen guns that they fire at these belts and suspenders, and they're just indestructible.
Yeah.
It's just, again, we're just so proud to have them as a sponsor.
every body shape too. They're putting big, small.
Oh yeah, I mean, think about it.
Round, square.
You know, belt and suspenders are not just for portly men.
No.
I mean,
It's just for the too tentative.
That's true. That's true. And anyone can be too tentative.
That's right.
Yep. Men, women, fat, thin, just tentative.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of the Video Reformation. I think this is our opportunity to remind everyone to download, subscribe, rate, review. I think this is where we're supposed to say, find it at iTunes, Stitcher, and wherever you find your podcasts.
I always hate that promo at the end because it's like they downloaded, they're listening.
Already there. But there are other episodes. That's the thing.
Of course they're going to listen to them.
Yeah, but not you'd be surprised from what I've heard. Like I subscribe to almost everything that I listen to just to get the most podcast listeners don't subscribe to podcasts. They just download the episodes they want, which I was surprised by. So it's incumbent upon us to remind them to download,
helpful,
subscribe. Sure, ratings and reviews, especially during these crucial first 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. That's big for us.
Yeah.
Because there's no way in hell we're going to end up on the new and noteworthy list of iTunes. But we certainly won't get there if nobody rates and reviews.
A lot of people aren't searching for video audits.
It doesn't matter because there are people who enjoy our banter and our insights, and they're just going to listen to this episode because the others have brought them value.
And if you are searching for video audits, God bless you. We love you.
I imagine the music has started by now.
My guess is it's been cut. We're done.
Oh, we're done. Nobody's listening. Nobody's listening. Period. Nobody's listening anymore.
Yeah. It's just us.
Well, we got 15 seconds until around 50 minutes. So why don't we give it another 10 seconds of banter.
Tell me a joke.
Okay. So 3 guys walk into a bar. There's a priest, a rabbi, a